Welcome to Accelerated. This is a series of conversations with fintechs and bankers discussing insights on partnerships and tips on accelerating growth. This series is brought to you by the Venture Center and the William Mills Agency. We are working together to feature collaborations that are helping to advance the fintech industry. Heather?
Thanks, Wayne. We're excited about the group we've brought to you today. We have a WMA client and Venture Center alumni, ZSuite Technologies, and Nathan, and the bank that launched the technology, Leader Bank, with Marc. So thank you both for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Good deal. Well, let's jump right in here. Marc, let's talk a little bit about the history. Your relationship and Nathan and ZSuite, this is a technology that came out of the bank and how it evolved into an independent company. Give us a little bit of history, a little bit of the back channel, and then Nathan, if you could add to some of that, that would be terrific.
Again, thank you. Thank you, Wayne, for having me, Heather. 6 years ago, we identified that we needed to streamline the way property managers and property owners collected their rents and set up security deposits. It was a vertical that Leader Bank was very, very familiar with. We had a built-in clientele of property managers. And I remember Jay Tooley, who is the president of Leader Bank, sitting down with me and asking if we could build something to make it easier for our property managers and our property owners to collect rents and set up security deposits, would they use it? So, sitting there going, what do you say to the president of the company? No. So that's how it really kind of evolved. We put our heads together. We felt that if we could provide a product to make it easier for them to be able to collect the security deposits and rents, not only could we provide a better quality and service, but we strongly felt that we could grow the deposits even bigger than we already had, and make the process more efficient for them, and easy for them to really not only manage the tenants and their clients, but also help them grow. And the process for us internally was very labor intensive and manual. So anything we could do to streamline the process and make it more efficient on both sides of the equation, I thought was a win-win situation.
So clearly a problem identified, a chance to grow the business, to create delight in the way in which you interact with your customers. Well, just out of curiosity, were they kind of knocking on your door to have you help them with this? Or, were they like, hey, could you guys build something, or was this something you really kind of just generated internally?
Yeah, we looked at it, and we look at what we're bringing in for deposits and what type of clients we're bringing in. And for us, it's very conversational with our clients. What's working, what isn't working, what can we do to help you either make it more efficient or help you bring in more clients. And so that really kind of started the conversations, and sitting down with Jay at that time and saying, we've got some great customers. They've got more properties. How can we, really engage them to bring more of that, share of wallet or business to Leader Bank? So that's how it really did. So it was really kind of a collaborative effort between, the bankers and the clients that, were using, the product that we had at the time.
Good deal. Later in the podcast, we'll talk about that sort of build versus buy decision, which I think is something that's pretty interesting and how you guys got there. But yeah. Nathan, give us a perspective from your perch.
Yeah, well, absolutely. After Leader Bank had started that development, they hired some resources and brought in some folks from the bank as well as some folks from outside to kind of build the technology and improve it out. And they've had tons of success. Just in regards to bringing in landlords and property managers, so much so that other banks started noticing what they were doing and started asking them, hey, so can we license that? And, between Marc and Jay, as well as many of the other members of the Leader Bank team, they made the decision, hey, it seems like we have something here, but to really give it the legs it needs to run, we probably need to spin it out. and make it its own company. And that's actually when I joined forces. That's when I met Mark. That's when I met Jay. And we decided to go ahead and partner together with the spin out, which happened in August of 2019. And what was really interesting and was very important to me as we spun out from the bank is I didn't want to lose two very specific things. First, I didn't want to lose the banking expertise, the specialization of really knowing banking inside and out from all aspects of servicing and operating to compliance to technology, all those types of things. And I also didn't want to lose the curiosity that Leader Bank displayed in saying, we want to do things a little bit differently. How can we find a pain point and solve a pain point to be able to grow? And I'm glad to say that we haven't lost that. So after we spun out, we had these two products that Mark was talking about. One is to help with rent automation in the collection. It's called Z-Rent. And then there was another one, Z-Deposit, which helped with the management of tenant security deposit accounts. Myself and other members of the ZSuite team started going and talking to a bunch of banks saying, hey, we have these things. It worked at this bank. What do you think? Do you think it'll work here? And what was interesting is we kept hearing a recurring theme. Wow, we really like what you're doing with tenant security deposit accounts, but we have a much broader pain point that security deposits are only a small portion. So what we found was, in general, our product, we didn't know that we built it. Mark and team didn't know that they were working on this, but they built the world's first digital escrow management tool, where a business can just go online and open up these different escrow accounts and automate all these compliance and notifications and all that stuff. And it was just scratching the surface because there's a bunch of other businesses or verticals that actually use that. Law firms, municipalities, title companies, real estate offices, unions, nonprofits, medical claims companies. There's just a whole bunch of folks that use it. And so we did exactly what Leader Bank had done previously with property managers. We just did it with the banks. Well, tell us more. What's the pain point? How can we help? Is there a product here? Should we develop this ourselves, et cetera? And so the new thing that we wanted to bring to ZSuite Technologies that they didn't have at Leader Bank was the ability to build and manage complex API first enabled SaaS platforms to build from the beginning. And so as we found this broader use case of escrow and sub-accounting for commercial clients, that also gave us a wonderful opportunity to go ahead and build a new API first SaaS platform that used all of the most modern technology to be able to connect with both the banks, but also with their commercial clients. But the only reason we had that opportunity and the only reason that we've been able to continue to grow is we just continued down that path that Leader Bank had set for us with being curious with the people that you're serving and asking questions, finding the pain point and figuring out how you can solve it in a unique way.
Awesome. Thanks for the softballs, because the next question is really about collaboration, right? And both you and Mark have brought that up. The other thing, look, you guys are both just very tenacious guys, right? You see, you listen, you learn, and that's very apparent. And it's what we see in great founders and great companies and the things that we see coming through. You also have Jay, right, who's an unusual leader as well from Leader Bank. We've had a chance to talk with him as well. So, you guys have at your core a more innovative, thirsty, caring about change type of mentality here. And part of that's where you have to start to begin. To your point, Nathan, is you never wanted to lose that sense of curiosity, which was why that was so great, I think, as part of the story. But, collaboration is clearly at the center of what you're doing here. And I think, you hear me, you guys have both heard me talk about it before. If you kind of wind the clock back 6 or 8 years, you talk about fintechs collaborating with banks. That was like, no, that's not going to happen. You guys are you're going to come eat our lunch. You're the Grim Reaper, or stay away. Obviously today we're in a much different place. So how did you get there? And what needs to change, do you think, in the mindset of, frankly, a lot of community banks and community bank leadership as it relates to having that willingness to collaborate and understanding what you can accomplish? I mean, a big question, but I don't know, Nathan, maybe you want to start on that one or Mark out either way.
Yeah, I can jump in. I always tell people that building a company is a team sport, and anyone that thinks differently is just flat out wrong. But who is your team? lots of times people are willing to open up their mind to the idea that the people within their company is part of their team. But there's so many more people that can actually help you to accomplish amazing things. As another example, when we actually did decide to start the development of this new platform to be able to have a general purpose digital escrow and sub-accounting platform, the first thing we did is we recruited specific banks to collaborate with us and the other banks throughout the entire development process. Leader Bank was one of those banks, but we had 4 others outside of Leader Bank that we got together as a group once a month. We got together with each bank individually once a month at least. We showed them our wireframes. We asked them how they would do it. We asked to get on the phone with their clients that would be using it. And I can tell you that the product that we built was better than anything that we would have come up had we just relied on collaboration within our team, as well as it was able to be made a lot quicker and faster, because we had a ton of ideas of different features that were so important to us in our minds that when we actually talked to the banks in our development group, as well as their clients, they're like, wait, why would I use that? We're like, oh, well, that's good question. I thought maybe you would. And so there's a lot of tied up into human psychology that fights against collaboration, which you need to be prepared to go up against. That just comes across through practice and time. You have to let go of pride. You have to be humble. You have to be willing to admit that you don't know everything. And you have to be willing to take the time to really listen to what people are saying, because they might not say the words. They might not know how to articulate the feelings. No one went to Leader Bank and said, could you build a digital escrow platform that helps me manage tenant security deposit accounts and automate to all of the compliance with these crazy laws in Massachusetts? They never said that. That was never what came out of their word, came out of their mouth. Mm-hmm. But that's what they said. That's what they communicated.
And we can just take that last sentence, Heather, and we'll put that on the walls here at the Venture Center, because, listen, it's amazing what happens, one, when you use we instead of I in terms of what you accomplish and work as a team. I so agree with that, Nathan. And again, thinking outside of your own orbit and your own sphere, right? But also, when you ask customers and you help them interpret, because you make such a great point about the fact that you may not speak the same language, but you're trying to reach the same, your empathy is in the same direction. You're trying to create the same results. But they speak Chinese and you speak French, you got to figure out how to speak together, right? But the point is if you ask them and do it appropriately and correctly, they will help you. And this comes, I think, we see so much of that in the work that we do here as we bring you guys together with banks to have those. But you've got to get your head right. You got to come to the game, not to be critical, but to be supportive, and to also provide that critical eye that's so important. I love Nick Saban. He makes a comment about, he says, I hate it when we win when we play poorly, right? Because people think that it's about winning, but being respectful of the critical eye as you build things and as you begin to win helps you get it to your point where it exceeded your expectations of what you would have built and the features that you thought were relevant. So anyway, let me flip it over to Mark, and then Heather, if you want to take it from there a little bit.
Yeah, and what you're saying, both of you here, is reminding me of another book I was just reading too, The Wide Lens, where at some point you might even want to help your partner. It's been more beneficial for you to help your partner succeed in what they're doing, because you need that whole ecosystem to be working towards and pulling in the right direction for you to be successful.
Yeah.
And yeah, Mark, you mentioned that in one of our prior conversations too, even how your community of other banks and peers in your network were so helpful in delivering this. Will you tell us some more about that?
Yeah, it really was, as bankers, so I can't agree more, what Nathan and Wayne said. As bankers, it's important us to really have an open mindset and embrace doing things different that challenges us. Because let's face it, bankers are used to doing things a certain way, right? That's how we were trained. And for somebody to come in and tell us, do it this way or do it differently, really goes against the grain. So I have to really, give it to Nathan and his team for providing, that unique perspective that bankers don't have when it comes to the fintech industry. Their approach was, we're going to listen to you. We're not going to tell you how to do it, but they were listening to us, what our needs were, what our clients' needs were, and helping us build that. So that's really unique, to have that kind of collaboration and, synergy when it comes to building these products. And, talking to other bankers, and it was the same thing. What we got out of it was that it really challenged us, again, like I said, to think differently, think outside the box, because at the end of the day, it's really about attracting these clients, keeping these clients and attracting new clients in this digital age. If we're not, as bankers and banks, looking to the future, we're going to lose them. They're going to go somewhere else that is going to provide that service, that product, and we're going to lose out. So that was important. And the feedback that, I received from, my other bankers and the peers out there was what a unique relationship and unique dialogue that they all had with the ZSuite team. So, that's important. It's important to have a fintech company like ZSuite really listen. Like Nathan said, we know internally, what works, what doesn't work, but we can be very, very kind of have blinders on sometimes. And by having somebody like that come in and really kind of, open that lens, a wide lens, it opens up so many opportunities for banks.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you both, because it's been years in process that you've been down this pipeline, and now in today's ecosystem, things are moving much faster on the technology side. So today, if you were faced with the same issues again, would you do things the same way? Would you have decided to build the technology first and spin it off? Tell me in retrospect, or someone in your shoes today, what would you do?
That's a great question. Hindsight's 2020, I guess. But I think, I don't know how much I would change, to tell you honestly, Heather. I kind of like the way I've seen it progress over the last 6 years, to tell you honestly. I think we learned a lot. Did we run into challenges? Sure. But I think we identified those pretty quickly, and pivoted in order, to make it even more successful, I think. So, I think I would bring in probably more collaboration with other peers in the industry. I think that I can see being very helpful in the future. Having that engagement a lot sooner in the process. Developing a product team like Nathan's team did when it came to the digital escrow product that that is now out there. I thought would have made the process a little bit better also. So yeah.
And Nathan, from your perspective, I know as we hopped on the line, the Venture Center has been a huge growth point for you and for that networking and getting other opinions. How would you suggest someone go through what you've just done with your spinoff?
Well, it was very interesting. We had the Z-Rent Z-Deposit product when we started going through the ICBA's accelerator with the Venture Center. And we had already kicked off the development group with the 5 banks to build out our broader platform. And so in the middle of that process, to also have an opportunity to meet with over 120 executive teams at different community banks all across the nation. I mean, you couldn't have asked for better collaboration, market validation, figuring out which banks were interested in this thing, which ones weren't, how do we talk about it, what's the business case, all those different types of things. So, that whole process of just a massive amount of feedback in a very short and concentrated point in time really helped us accelerate our business in a way that wouldn't be possible. I keep telling my team at this point, we launched our new product on our new platform, the new product called ZEscrow, over the summer. And the traction that we're getting is just absolutely phenomenal. I keep telling my team this over and over again. I'm like, I was expecting us to take off in the way that it has, but I was expecting it like next year or the year after. I wasn't expecting it this quickly. But I think that it is a direct result of just that massive amount of input that we received in a short amount of time to really understand what problem we were solving, how we should best solve it, and who are the ones that were running into that situation. So you can't turn off the feedback. And the more that you can get, the more varied that you can get, and the more willing you are to listen to that feedback, the faster you are going to be able to make progress.
It says a lot for both of you. Actually, everyone on this call too, and how receptive you are to the feedback, because everyone can receive it, but it's a gift you have to do something with.
Right. True.
You know, it's really interesting as we evaluate companies coming into the programs and so forth. You know, one of the most important characteristics is coachability. You know, because if you don't want our help, we get it, but you know, there's the thing is it just doesn't come from us. It comes from people like Nathan and Mark and so many people who collaborate on this process, and it's why it works. You know, and it's so great to hear what Nathan says, because you know that's how we win as the venture centers, bringing the bankers and bringing the fintechs together in that collaborative environment that where there's trust, and we feel we've been, you know, a catalyst in helping to build that trusted environment so that can occur. And to hear, you know, Nathan talk, and obviously Mark as well, you know, those are the results that I think all of us want. So that's the win-win-win, right? That's really pretty cool. So sorry, that was a little bit of a venture center commercial there, I guess. Let's go back to one of the things, Mark, you talked about sort of and Nathan, a little bit of the build versus buy. You know, huge issue for, you know, kind of sub $10 billion banks today about what are you going to do? Are you going to build it or not? The other thing that is also interesting, and I've learned this a lot really in the last couple of months, is, you know, when banks invest in technology, it isn't necessarily for an ROI, right? That seems to almost be secondary. Whether they're investing in venture funds or whatever, they really seem to be more interested in kind of the value of the R&D and how it is going to help them grow their businesses, et cetera. So maybe, you know, Mark, start with you a little bit. And I guess, Nathan, you were involved in that decision-making process as well, where, you know, I guess the question Jay asked is, could you build it? And you did, and they came sort of like, you know, Field of Dreams, but a ZSuite of Dreams. But, you know, maybe if you can speak to that a little bit, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's, you know, as looking at the product, you know, the thing that strikes me the most is you can build the best product and really get all the bells and whistles into it. It's about execution. So that's really the key, I think, when it comes. You've got this great product, you know, you collaborated with a great company to help you build this. The next step is the execution, and I think that's where I don't know how to say this and not get in trouble for it, but I don't know how much thought goes into that, the execution piece of it. And, you know, we really thought long and hard about how to execute that. Who's going to be the champion for these products or these services, right? What is your game plan? You know, do you have a strategy to go to market with this? What is that strategy? Can you pivot if it doesn't work? Right? So those are the things that we really thought long and hard about. You know, we knew the product would work. Again, it's could we reach those people and talk to them intelligently, you know, tell them about the product and really have them buy into it. And I think that's where, from my perspective, is really important, that you do have a game plan, you do have a strategy, and you execute on that. It's great to have a strategy and the products and everything. If you don't execute on it, then you're dead in the water. You're not going to go anywhere with it. I hope that kind of makes sense, but you know, that to me is important.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting, I'm going to riff off of what Mark said, but in a slightly different fashion, because he didn't answer your question, Wayne. And I think it's actually important that he didn't answer his question, because my answer wasn't going to answer your question either. And it's the build versus buy versus partner decision is almost secondary. First, what you need to do is you need to figure out what should you do and can you do it? Will there be an ROI? And that's where I think a lot of folks in the banking industry specifically are getting innovation wrong. It's what's cool, what's trendy, what are people talking about? I'm going to do that. I'm going to go sit at Finovate and I'm going to see all the cool presentations. I'm going to read the Financial Brand and I'm going to see what people are talking about there. I'm going to go to the Venture Center and I'm going to learn about all these different innovative new companies. And I'm going to pick and choose based off of which ones my peers are doing or which ones speak to me the most. And then they go and they do it. And that's the wrong place to start. I mean, it's good to be able to use that as a base of information for brainstorming. So trust me, I love going to Finovate and I think bankers should go there. I think that bankers should absolutely participate in the Venture Center. But first, what a bank really needs to figure out is strategically, what is it that you need to do as a business? What markets are you going to serve? Is it geographic? Is it segments? Are you going to be commercial? Are you going to be consumer? Are you going to try to be something for everybody? Well, good luck if you try to do that. But what is going to be the way that you're going to grow your business? What's the strategic decisions that you're going to make to be able to execute upon a plan that's going to get your shareholders a great return and provide a wonderful environment for people to work in, that's going to grow the communities that you feel like you need to serve? You need to start there. If you don't start there, you're not going to go anywhere. And then the second question is, okay, well, if I want to do that, and we'll just use LeaderBank as an example because we're talking to Mark, I want to go after more property managers and landlords. I want to bank them more. I want more of them and I want more of the relationship. Then the next question isn't, do I build or buy to figure out how to fulfill the needs? The next question is, can I do that?
Right.
Is there a return? Do I have a path to success? And then after you can answer those two questions, then figure out, okay, I know what market I'm going after. I know the unique way I'm going to go after the market because I figured out what their pain points are, what they need, what they're missing, and what I can provide that's different than anybody else. I figured out that I can execute upon it. Now, how do I actually fulfill that? Do I have the technology already in place? Do I already have the people in place to be able to do that? Or do I need to go out and bring people onto my team? Or are there companies that are out there that could actually help me with it? And that's when you should ask that question. It only should be those two first. So I thought it was interesting that Mark decided not to answer your question because I was planning on not answering your question. But I do want to come back to answering your question. For most banks, you're not going to build. And I'll be honest with you, with fintech companies, you ain't going to build either. We're all partnering. You want to know how my platform was built? It's with AWS and GraphQL and Microsoft SQL and Postgres and DocuSign and Raygun. I mean, I can go on and all of the people that we partnered with to be able to build our platform because we don't build anymore. You don't need to build individual components anymore. This is awesome in regards to technology. And so banks should not plan on building. Do you already have someone that has already put everything together for you? Do you need to put some stuff together by yourself? I mean, those are questions that you need to ask. But, most of the time, build is not going to be the answer.
Yeah, and it's not cost effective either. I mean, think about what you would need to do internally from a banking perspective, to build a product like this, from scratch. I mean, and I think we realized early on that, okay, we got it to a point and we really kind of hit the wall and said, okay, in order to take it to that next level, we need to think about, spinning it off and bringing other people in that have that expertise to really enhance it and bring it to the next level. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you both for not answering my question. No, I mean, a lot of great things said there, but what's interesting is it's not really where you guys started, right? I mean, you kind of got hooked on, oh, wait a second, there's a problem here, there's an opportunity here. And then it kind of grew from there, because one of the things that I would submit to you also is that, we obviously deal with a lot of bankers here, and many of them don't know what they don't know. And Mark, to your point, you made earlier on, bankers are trained a certain way. They're fundamentally risk averse. That's their business, right? Is to mitigate risk and make, obviously good financial decisions. So oftentimes they may not understand the opportunities that exist in their own markets, Nathan, to your point. And then lastly, once they do kind of get that figured out, and I think that's a huge piece, because, we see it with fintech so often where, so who's your market? And they say, well, all banks. Well, no, that's not the right answer, because how you serve $100 billion bank versus a sub $10 billion bank versus a $200 million bank is really quite different. So, I love the way you progress there, because I don't think they know oftentimes what they want to build or buy until sometimes they see that or that tech. And Nathan, I think the other thing that's really important, you and Mark have sort of said this in your own words, is that you guys fell a lot more in love with the problem than you did the solution, to truly try to understand that first. Building the tech around solving a problem, is it hard? Yes. Is it difficult? Yes. It's all those things. But your comprehension of the problem and your ability to really dissect that, like the frog in high school, I mean, you got to get into the guts of the thing. And that is about that collaborative effort with all of the people that you've talked about, Nathan, that you partner with. So, great answers. And in spite of the fact that I didn't get my answer to the question.
Yeah, and I'm going to add just one more thing to what we said about, and for us at Leader Bank, I think we're a little unique. We're very entrepreneurial. I mean, that's what drew me to Leader Bank when I joined 10 years ago. It was a bank that was up and coming, and it was very entrepreneurial, meaning, they really wanted to kind of push the envelopes, technology, that type of thing. And, and you have to give credit to senior management, Jay, and, the senior team over at Leader Bank for having that mindset, knowing that, for a bank our size at that time and now, is we need to be entrepreneurial. And I think that has helped us. And I think will continue to help us in the years to come.
You guys actually, just if I remember correctly, and having talked to Jay previously, you guys actually changed your brand to support that mentality, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Yep. Yes. Yeah, we have gone through a whole branding in the last several months. So yeah, absolutely.
Good deal. Yeah.
One of the things that you talk about integrating with all these other fintech partners and what's out there and what's available in the industry right now, it's leading to a more active embedded fintech environment. So where do you see the future of that going?
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about embedded finance. You also talk a lot about banking as a service. This kind of goes hand in glove with all these things, and I think it's very emerging. I think it has existed for quite a while now. It's just the pace is going a lot quicker, and the ability to embed has increased quite a bit with new APIs and new modern technology to be able to connect things. I think that it's, from my perspective, banks are absolutely going to have to continue to build out their capabilities and understanding of being able to integrate with multiple different software services and being able to create bridges of communication with data and applications through APIs or other different ways. The question for me, if I were a bank, that I would keep asking is, when do they integrate to me versus me integrate to them? Mm-hmm. And I think it's a really, really important question, because the person that owns the consumer or the customer or the user, I mean, use whatever word you want. Another way to think about it is whoever is front stage is going to get the bulk of the profitability of whatever activity is being created by the uses of technology. And the bulk of the profitability is what you want. Back-end services are great. Back-end services, the way that back-end service companies make money is they don't make as much money, so they get a lower portion of the profitability of the overall value that's created in the ecosystem. But if you're a back-end system, you can do it at much greater volumes, right? And so when you go into the backstage, the long-term business model is volume. If you're in the front stage, obviously you want volume, but you can also do quite a bit of profit maximization. And if I were a bank, specifically a community bank more than anything else at this point in time, I would be fighting tooth and nail to figure out how to stay on the front stage, how to stay with the person that has the connection with the relationship that is creating the greatest portion of the profitability, and bringing in back-end services to help me. Mm-hmm. Now, there's going to be a couple banks out there that are going to make a lot of money and be very, very successful in being the back end for the banking as a service as they're embedded into multiple different SaaS companies. Mm-hmm. But it's a scale play. And we've seen scale plays play out time and time again, all the way back in the steel industry to now. AWS is a great example for hosting services. You have AWS, you have Google, and you have Microsoft. Those are your three choices now as far as hosting services, because that's the business model. You need to do it in scale. And so if I were a bank, if you have a head start on being back end and you really feel like you have very specific skill sets and you have the right team and you have the right technology and you have the right go-to-market and stuff like that, fight for it. Try and be one of those few players that will win. But for the large majority of community banks, it's going to be pretty tough at this point in time. So I would always figure out, when it comes to embedded finances and embedded fintech and all those types of things, figure out, it's the same thing as with any other banking service. You need to figure out where your niche is. You need to figure out how you're going to differentiate yourself. And I would fight tooth and nail to stay front stage instead of backstage.
Yeah, I agree with that. We're seeing it now here at Leader Bank. It's interesting. We have clients coming to us now saying, I have this problem. If you can solve this for us, there's many more clients out there that will buy this product or come to you if you build this for us. And we're seeing that time and time again with, whether it's the property management vertical, the municipality vertical, the attorneys, we're seeing that they're coming to us because they've seen it. They've seen it with the Z rent, the Z deposit, the Z escrow, and now they're saying, okay, we have this issue. Can you solve this for us? And we're embracing that, and we're reaching out to other fintech companies or, other companies we can partner with to help us build that product or provide us that service for our client. So that's exciting.
Because if Leader Bank doesn't, another SaaS company that is not a bank is going to come in and they're going to fill that particular request, and they're going to embed a banking service within their software platform, and Leader Bank's no longer going to have the opportunity to win that relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
What we're hearing is there'll be a build-a-thon in your future, right?
We hope so.
Great answers. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up by just opening up the floor. Is there anything that you'd like to add that we haven't asked about specifically?
The only thing I'd like to add, and this is important for people either listening or watching to this, is it is so important to, when you are looking at a fintech company, is to really ask them questions about service and quality. The one thing that, that ZSuite provides us here at Leader Bank is the constant communication that we have with them, with Nathan and his team. Our meetings that we have every 2 weeks is so essential, to us as a bank and to our clients. Whether it's just getting together about what, a product release or an upgrade or something like that. But, to have that dialogue on a consistent basis, from my perspective, is huge. There are no surprises. Things are, identified right away and talked about. And, there's an action plan that goes into that. So I think that that's really huge when it comes to really partnering with a fintech company, is that that constant communication back and forth and the dedication to providing that level of service that, the clients and, the banks, are looking for.
Seems to me that's almost table stakes today if you're going to have a great relationship with obviously a provider, but also, from a consumer's perspective or a business perspective. We're all getting a little spoiled with, point and click and get what we want delivered to our front door. So our expectation, I think, is growing in all of our areas. So, I also think too, Mark, it's an interesting statement because, community banks still own the trust and the relationships in their communities. And, again, I don't think the accolades for what you all did this year as it relates to PPP has been, nearly as well recognized as perhaps it should have been. I mean, I don't know how active Leader was in that process, but regardless, it was a yeoman's effort, and we saw it, really from our perch. It was pretty amazing what we saw some of the banks do. But, again, having those additional services or solutions that are very market centric in terms of what you've done with ZSuite is a complete demonstration of how, again, your clients will come to you to say, help me solve this problem, and our banks become a lot more relevant when everybody's trying to make them irrelevant, right? So that's great stuff. I love the story.
Great.
The last thing that I would add, kind of as concluding remarks, is none of what we do matters unless you have results. I mean, in the end, we all are running businesses here, and we're trying to make progress within our respective businesses. I would say, and Mark, you tell me if you disagree, but ZRent and ZDeposit have been a huge home run for Leader Bank in regards to the relationships they've been able to grow, the deposits they've been able to attract, the additional loan volume, the stickiness. I mean, all those different types of things. It's been a huge home run. As we've worked very hard in collaboration, not just between ZSuite and Leader Bank, but also with the other banks, as we've discussed and stuff like that, they've come up with ZEscrow. I think it's interesting to note that one of the first clients that Leader Bank's going to onboard into ZEscrow is going to bring about the same amount of deposits as all of the people that are currently using ZRent and ZDeposit. I mean, just let that sink in.
Yeah.
In regards to the ability to accelerate progress. Now, can't guarantee that for all of our clients, and can't guarantee that with every innovation that we do. We would have never gotten here without the whole journey that we've talked about throughout this podcast. But the ability to find growth and no longer just grow linearly, but exponentially is available and there if you put in the hard work, if you continue to push, you continue to iterate, you continue to innovate.
I think that alone should be a podcast for a future date, Nathan, that what you just brought up, honestly.
Absolutely.
That whole process was amazing. So yeah, well said.
I like it. We will reschedule you all down the road and talk about that, because it's impressive. You prepared for scale and you established it very quickly right off the bat. We'll stay tuned for more then. We've got settled. Thanks for your participation today. It was a great conversation. We look forward to airing this and following up with more.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Nathan and Heather. Always a pleasure to do this